All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this live talk. I'm Srikanth. I'm the host for this evening. If you want to know more details about me, go to www.coachsrikanth.com. The most important person today is Romil. Romil is a retired Lieutenant Colonel from the Indian Army. He is also the CEO of Boots and Crowns, Crampons. Um, a little bit of introduction about Romil. He's an Everester paratrooper. He holds the record for non-Ladakian on the 111-kilometer ultra run in Leh Ladakh. He's a keynote motivational speaker. He also has done a 185 kilometers, 24-hour stadium run. He also is known as a super randonner, so that he will let us know what it is all about. Um, as I have already mentioned, please mute your mic and you can keep your video on. I'm going to let Romil speak on this topic, leadership lessons from Everest. What you're going to do is I'm going to ask a few questions to Romil, and that interaction will go for about maybe 30 to 40 minutes at the outer limit. And I will open the floor for questions. And when we open for questions answer, that time you can switch on your mic and the video and introduce yourself and ask a question. So we hope to wrap up by 9 p.m. Right? Okay. So Romil, with that brief introduction, let's get to the main talk. I have hosted you a couple of times in the past uh, for the runners community. However, I have not been asking you questions, right? The questions
Right.
were being asked by somebody else. So I had this, burning urge to ask this question. The first and the foremost question I want to ask you is: you're a military veteran, Everester, paratrooper, 111-kilometer ultra runner, 24-hour stadium runner, Boston marathoner, half Ironman podium finisher, super randoner, and an adventurer. What is the reason for all this madness?
Hi, Srikanth. First of all, thank you so much, uh, especially for the kind of topic we have today, which is leadership lessons from Everest. I've spoken a lot in various communities, in various capacities at various institutes of, corporates. But then this is something which I really wanted to speak about. And thank you, for giving this topic. Regarding the first question which you asked, the madness behind all these activities, somehow I think either I am crazy or there's something wrong with me, because I feel difficult for when I see people not following their heart. They
Okay.
want to do something, but very rarely you find people doing that. If you ask 100 people, they 100 of them would say that they want to do something, but they are not doing it. Somehow I don't find any reason why do they need to do it. That is one reason that people may call it madness. But then in my case, I was lucky in 94 after my 12th. Once I joined army, I was groomed that way. My seniors, my mentors, they always taught me this thing that, Romil, if this is you have to do, give it 100%. Don't do this that, you're doing it for formality, but you want to do this, but you're doing this. Somehow I could not correlate to that kind of a thing. And that's the reason, as we know, evolution happens. So I started with running. Then as cross training, all runners, you are a runner, I'm sure you know it. Once you do running, you need to do cross training. So
Mm-hmm.
for cross training, I did cycling,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite obvious. Most of the runners do it. So once I did cycling, lot of cycling, I excelled. That's how we did Super Andino. And since you just now mentioned, Super Andino is a, French event wherein if you do 200-kilometer cycling, 300-kilometer cycling, 400 and 600-kilometer cycling in a stipulated time and in one season, then you get this title from France. You get medals from there, you get recognition, you have, checkpoints en route, and then you get this title of Super Enduro. So that's how I did cycling, and there I excelled because, as I said, whatever I was doing, I gave it my 100%. So once I was doing running, I could, I got a lot of support. Goes without saying. Then only, you can do Boston Marathon. And similarly, once I was doing cycling, there was again a huge community. A lot of people supported. I did Super Endeavor. Then I thought, if I've done cycling, I've done running, I do a duathlon. I did duathlon. Then I thought, let me try triathlon. I went for swimming. Then I went for half Ironman. And God was kind. I was pretty underconfident, but then I finished as a podium finisher in the same half Ironman also. Now, once you're done cycling, running, and swimming, half Ironman is done. What next? God gave me this opportunity for Everest. So I was just lucky that, as part of evolution, like a baby is born, he starts turning, he starts crawling, he starts walking, he starts running. In my case, evolution was right from IIT KGP days, that circle is there, you keep going round and round.
Right.
you know it, So that's how I started long distance running. Then, as I said, cross training, then half Ironman. And then, once you're doing good in certain activities, the environment also notices. The army realized that, this guy is doing well. I was made in charge of training the army team for Adventure Cup, which is a, try event club, which involved cycling, followed by running, and then, whitewater rafting. So I got opportunity to train the army teams for that. I did courses in whitewater rafting. And then they said, okay, you train the army team for the ultra marathons.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, the environment supported me a lot, and they also got the results, because as I said, there was nothing personal gains in, training the army team. I made sure these people, had a tough time during training, but the results, obviously, if you train hard, the results are, obviously good. So that madness was God gave me new targets, and luckily I could capitalize on them.
No. The way that you're speaking, Romil, is like you're like, you have made it so easy for a lot of people who are in this call, and I know it is not easy. So tell me, when you did the running. So running, of course, most of the people do running, right? And then cycling.
Right.
And how did that swimming happen? Because to take part in a triathlon, and that too to finish a podium, it is not an easy job, right? So you're talking about what, 1.9 kilometers of swimming?
Yes.
Yeah. So how did that happen?
It happened because I was teaching my daughter also for swimming. So I every day evening we used to go for a swim.
Yeah.
She used to go and swim, and we both used to swim together. And as part of, as I said, there was a lot of support. I remember for 21 Sundays, I used to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, go for workouts, and come back by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it used to be 11 to 13 hours, including breakfast, including swimming, including cycling. And just because the base was good, since the foundation is good, we understand how base training works. I could, make structures as per my requirements.
Right.
So that's how it happened.
So for people who don't know what is the half Ironman, it is first you swim for 1.9 kilometers in the open waters, and then you get off the water, get onto a cycle, and cycle for about 90 kilometers, get on the cycle, and run for about 21.1 kilometers. So you do all this at one go. There is no break. Even if you take a break, the clock is ticking, and that is what it is called a half Ironman. And podium finisher is that you come among one of the top three in that particular race. Okay, so this is another question, Romil. It has been they are lingering in my mind for a long time. I thought I might as well put this out and ask this question. So the typical trend is, when somebody exits the force, they will join the corporate. Mostly I have seen people from the forces joining a corporate, and that too maybe in facilities or as an HR or as what should I say, in the security department.
Yes.
In your case, a person like you, that too you got a degree from IIT and PG from IIM, you could have just taken a corporate job. And why once again this madness of an entrepreneurship where you don't know, you're not certain what is going to happen with your life? What's the reason?
Shrikant, you're typically talking like my parents. My parents say the same thing. That if you have to do IIT, if you have to be to IIM, why did you go for mountaineering? As a career as, entrepreneurship? Why do you need to climb mountains? What is the use of doing IIT or IIM? You have wasted your life. That's exactly they tell me day in, day out, But let me tell you something. My turning point in life came because of IIT Kharagpur. I tell this to, in fact, IIT had called me Professor PPC and had gone and delivered the lecture. I told them the same thing. And why I tell you this is, in my graduation, I was third division, and I was very low on confidence.
Okay.
When I was 34, as I said, I used to give my 100% to whatever I did. But it's not that you give your 100% and you get the results. It doesn't happen. Everybody tries to do it. It's not that you're giving your 100% means you will succeed always. That doesn't happen. So in my NDA, I used to study very hard. I got a third division in my graduation. Now imagine a person who has done a third division telling someone that, I want to go for IIT for my post-graduation. So I didn't tell anyone, thinking, people would make a mockery out of me. That, had you been, so intelligent, you would have at least got a second or a first division.
Right.
So once I made it to IIT Kharagpur, I realized that I am not as dumb as I thought I am.
Right.
Right. I have something in me. That's why I've reached there. And then IIT Kharagpur, by Danda or whatever, they'll make sure you study there.
True.
I remember, crying literally that why have I landed here?
Yeah. If you can get into IIT, you can get out of IIT.
When you don't have to do anything, IIT will make sure, you get out.
Get out, yes.
And top it all, my professor made sure that, my papers got published in international journals, conferences. So, I realized that a dumb like me, papers are being cited by, various journals and Journal of Supercomputing. And my NDA professors used to tell me, "Yaar, you couldn't pass for 2 years in computers." I said, that's how life is. My course mates, my classmates, they really cursed me. They said, Romil, you used to, sham it out. I said, no, it's not the case. So IIT gave me a lot of confidence, that if you work hard, you'll succeed. And as I said, results poured in. And once I tasted success, I realized, that yes, it's just hard work and focus and, doing right things which matters. It's not just working hard. That's the only thing. So somehow I cracked the code, and after IIT, then I started running, and as we just now discussed everything. So now IIT gave me that confidence. Had I not gone to IIT, I would never had the courage of joining a job after leaving army as a mountaineer. So that's why IIT came into play. Same as IIM. Once I went to IIM, I was also of the impression that I should join a corporate. But frankly speaking, I could never find someone whom I wanted to emulate. I wanted, that after 5 years, after 10 years, I should be like this. That was never my thing, On the contrary, I used to see people in adventure sports. I used to see people mountaineering, and I used to see, this is the life. This is what I want to be. So if you know what you want to be, why would you go in a different direction?
True.
So that was my, my logic of taking this journey. And yes, as I say, my parents still don't find any reason for me doing this. But yes, my wife supports me a lot. My kids, they are, super comfortable with this and support me a lot. So that's why I thought, let me give it a try. And I'm more than happy. Nice. Very excited, very pumped up.
Nice. No, I can see your energy. I mean, you're completely pumped up, man. Okay, so tell me, what similarities have you seen or are you seeing between army, mountaineering,
okay,
corporate world, and entrepreneurship?
Okay, this is very interesting one. So in all these things, there is one thing which is very common, which is if you're passionate, you'll find a way. Way is not easy. Like, I'll give you an example. 10 days back, I was driving on Taj Expressway from Delhi to Agra and subsequently to Lucknow. Morning, we were driving, there was a lot of fog, So once fog is there, we all know you cannot see very far off. but you can see certain distance,
Mhm.
and once you reach the distance, you see the next part, you see the next part. So similarly in life, you don't have to think that, after 10 years, where you will be, whether you'll be vice president, you will be chairman, director, whatever things you may call it. You should be clear what is your next step, and don't worry too much about, things ahead. That has been my funda of my life. People ask me, where will you be 10 years from now? I said, who's bothered 10 years? You never know that in mountains you're going today, tomorrow you will not come back.
Right. Right.
Right. So, like last month, there was an incident in Chaboli. There
Mhm.
was this landslide wherein a lot of people died. So we
Mhm.
were climbing that time in that area.
Mm.
So everybody was bothered. What happened? I said, I'm a firm believer of destiny. The day I have to die, I have to die.
Yeah.
That can happen in Delhi. That can happen in Bangalore. That can happen anywhere. So, so the similarities between all these things is, be it the army life, be it the corporate, be it entrepreneurship, be it mountaineering, there'll be a lot of challenges. There's no one in my family, in my friend circle, who says it's not challenging. And they are in different segments. Somebody is in corporate, somebody is in various fields. So life is challenging everywhere. You've got to make sure that you have to align yourself for that. You've
Mhm.
got to be happy in those challenges.
Mm. Mm.
Like my mom, my wife, they say, you know that army life was much better, you're so busy now. I said, yes, I am busy every day morning, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I go for a run or a walk. 5 to 6, I'm working something or the other.
Uh,
And then I go for this. They say, you've become so busy. I said, I might be busy, but I'm enjoying myself.
mm. Mm. Mm.
That's more important. If I'm free the whole day and I'm not enjoying, what is the purpose of life?
Right.
So with this, I say, other thing between, present life and what was there in the army and mountaineering is it's mentally as well as physically very taxing,
Mm. Mm.
because once you are starting a business, there'll be a lot of decisions. You're not
Mhm.
sure how will it shape out to be. Something in army which we call as fog of war.
Mhm.
Once you're at war, it's very uncertain that what the enemy might do. What strategy they would follow. You have to counter that strategy. Think from his mindset. In business, same thing happens. You have to think from the customer's mindset point of view. What he
Mm.
wants.
Mm. Mm.
You keep planning for Everest. He wants to climb in Leh Ladakh. Keep planning. So you have to understand, these kind of aspects, that it's very challenging, and you have to be prepared for those kind of things. Other thing, yes, I'm sure everybody knows. In army, you don't give up. You know, if I tell I give up, my people will shoot me.
Yeah.
You leave. You're not required. If you give up, the whole team, the morale of the whole team goes down. Similarly, in your new business which you're setting up, there'll be lots and lots of challenges. I'm sure you understand this, because you've also made a very bold transition. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so that giving up is never an option. You keep trying. One thing fails, second. So adaptability again needs to be there. If this
Right.
thing is not working, that's not the end of it. You'll never run out of opportunities or ideas. Keep exploring, keep trying.
Yeah. So
And
one thing. Yeah. Sorry. Did you want to say something?
one more point,
Yeah.
which I've always felt in life is you need to have resilience. It's not that you take one step, it will succeed. You keep failing, keep trying. If you're not trying, if you're not taking risk, that's the biggest risk you're going to take in life,
Right.
right? Being non-risky is,
Yeah.
a crime, I would say.
Right. I particularly liked one metaphor that you said about driving in the fog, right? So you keep the end in the picture, but
Yes,
don't wait for that entire fog to get cleared to start your journey, right?
very true.
Whatever is visible, you go till then, and then maybe 50 meters, 100 meters, and then you will get more visibility. You just keep going, right? Just keep moving with whatever little information that you have, and that's a brilliant metaphor that you used. Okay, so. Now, how would you like to narrate an experience where you applied? Uh, okay, let me reframe the question. Now, according to you,
Yeah.
what are the core competencies or values that somebody should embrace in a
Right.
leadership role? And how do you connect that to your entrepreneurship and mountaineering? It's a trick question for you.
No, I'll tell you, this is very simple, simple because, your basics have to be right. It's not that 100% you have to do everything to perfection. That's what I tell my team also, in my present work. I say, your intention has to be right. That cannot go wrong. After that, if results are not coming, that's secondary. Don't worry on that. The first day you join army, any army, anywhere in the world, there's one quote you learn. That quote is by Philip Chetwood, which says that there's some noise, I'll request.
Yeah, I'm just putting it off. I just put it off. Yeah.
Thank you. So the first quote which you learn once you join army is, anywhere in the world, is the safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first.
Okay.
Which means there are no doubts that country has to be first in whatever you do. Right? This is in the army. Then is the men you command. And third is your own self. In army, we say country, the people you command, and third is your own self. Same thing you apply in corporates, any business, whatever. Your company comes first, that reputation, that name, that is obviously number one. Second is your own team. If your team knows that you are there for them, they will produce miracles. On the contrary, if the team knows that their boss is a gone case, they'll also be working that way. And third is, once these two things are taken care of, they automatically will take care of you.
Okay.
So that's, kind of the thing you learn in army, and then you replicate the same thing in whatever field you are.
Okay. So talk to me about a real time incident which has really tested your leadership competencies.
There have been lots of instances, I tell you, had you seen me before 2018, I was much younger, no white hair, nothing. But after that 1 year of Everest has really tested me like hell. All my family members, everybody knows that, that 1 year I've lived close to 20 years of my life. That kind of experience, that kind of extreme challenges, life and death situations. So there were a lot of cases. I'll share you one instance. So we were in Siachen. We were training for Everest, right? So we went from the base camp. We went to higher camps to reach a summit, right? So once we reached to the higher camp, we got a call on the radio set that, sir, you need to come back because the weather is not conducive for climbing. Now we were close to 5,500 or 6,000 meters, and Everest is 8,800 meters. Now, if you're training for 8,800 and at 5,500, you're not taking calculated risk, that means you're not training well. You've got to take calculated risk, keep pushing. So it was a dilemma whether you should go ahead or not go ahead. These lot of times you have these doubts. So I said, we'll go ahead. We'll take all the precautions. Only then we'll go ahead. So we were moving ahead, moving one behind the other. We were 15 of us. I was the last one. Being a team leader, you observe each and every individual. How is the body movement? And I was so sure of my team. If the person is not working properly, I could make out, this person will give up in 1 hour or is not in the best shape today. And sure enough, that person after some time would come on to me and say, sir, I need to go back. I'm not feeling well. So this was my, bonding with the team. At one point of time, there was a sound, thud. The moment that sound came, we realized there was a big avalanche coming from the top of that mountain. It was completely wiped out, snowfall, everything. Now the drill is, the moment you see a avalanche, you turn back, try and move away yourself, move away from that beaten zone which is there, that route which is there. But you're not that fast. Avalanche moves at 120, 130 kilometers per hour, that kind of speed or more. So the moment I turned back, I got engulfed. I rolled 3-4 times, and in an avalanche, the probability of surviving is very less. Hardly anybody survives. You will not find many instances. So the moment I got trapped in avalanche, I realized, I'm gone. But the moment you realize that you are gone, that means you are alive. That's why you're thinking like that. So I was happy that I'm alive.
Okay.
The moment I got into senses, I was feeling happy that I'm alive, which means everything is fine. I realized I was, kind of waist deep inside the snow. I said, does not matter. I turned back towards my team. The moment I turned back, we saw there was another avalanche. And I said, today is the day God wants me dead. That's why this thing has happened. So I again turned back, but before I turned back, there was snow in my mouth. This time I went 10 to 15 meters ahead. And I thought in my mind, aaj to gaye.
Yeah.
But again, that thing struck me. I said, aaj to gaye means I'm alive. Mera dimag chal raha hai. That means I'm not dead. So this time I was kind of shoulder deep inside the snow. And somehow I turned and I saw my team. There were 2 members who were away from that beaten zone. They pulled out everyone. Everybody was kind of okay. The first thing you do is you count the number of people. Start from one side, 1, 2, 3, 4. And, that was the longest I've ever waited for anything, for that counting to finish. Because if I'm not 15, that means somebody is buried under the snow. The moment I said 15, I was the happiest man on this planet. But somehow there was one girl of our team, she was crying. And she was crying like hell. And I didn't know whether to feel happy or sad, because one, she's alive, that is important. She's crying, that means there's something drastically wrong with her, because she's been a well-trained soldier, and then she's crying, that means something is really wrong. This girl, we later on realized, had a panic attack. 22-year-old young girl, engulfed in snow, neck deep. So that was the reason she was crying. The moment this thing happened, we just rushed back, because the chances of avalanche are more because that path has been made. So we rushed back to the high camp. The moment I reached the camp, I got a certificate. I called up everyone. I said, first of all, congratulations, you all are alive. You don't survive avalanche. Till now, whatever training we were doing was in a controlled environment. This is the challenge we faced, the biggest challenge we have ever had. And on Everest, again, you'll have similar challenges because it's not a controlled environment. So I said, if anybody wants to step out of the team, this is the time, because challenges are going to be there. And sure enough, nobody backed out, everybody supported. And that's how, we all scaled the top of Everest, all 14, which was kind of record, because in 2019, there were 18 people who died in that area. It's only our team who went in the top, came back, no scratches. We were invited by the Prime Minister. He congratulated each and everyone. The girl who was crying that time, PM asked her, beta tumhe kaisa laga? And this girl said ki sir hum upar jaake वापस आ गए, मैं पता ही नहीं चला कब Everest आ गया. Imagine a 22-year-old saying. So, if your team knows that the leader is there with them under all circumstances, the leader puts his life in danger just because the team is there. There were so many other instances, because, time we cannot share everything, but there were so many instances wherein we had to make such decisions. So if the team knows that you're going to stand with them, they can do wonders for you.
Nice, very nice. Okay, I got a couple of more questions, and with that, I'm going to open the floor for other people to interact with you. How has endurance sports helped you in shaping up your mindset? This is a very important question.
See, I attribute my journey to running. It's because I joined a running group in Hyderabad, which is Hyderabad Runners. I got so much of motivation, so much of encouragement, that, and then everything happened because of running. Because of cross training for running, I did cycling. Then I did half Ironman. And because I was doing well, I got, opportunities for Everest and everything. So it's because of endurance sports like running or whatever you want to choose. Now, the main reason I feel running played an important part is that you cannot fool in your running. You cannot cheat anyone that, I can do a 10K in 45 minutes or 40 minutes. If you can do it, you can do it. If you cannot do it, you cannot do it. And it's not a instant gratification wala feel that, you take a tablet and you run in 40 minutes. That doesn't happen, right? So you need
I wish it happens.
everybody wishes like that, that I take a tablet and I become an Olympian. That doesn't happen. So you need a lot of self-discipline, a lot of commitment. I'm sure that day we were discussing in that IIT KGP group wherein people were asking, Srikanth, your PB in 10K, so and so. So, you need consistent effort. You need
Right.
lots of hard work.
Right.
And this running teaches you long distance running. I don't know about sprints and all because I'm not into that field, but then I'm sure people who are into sprinting and all have lots of efforts to make, then only they will reach a level. So endurance sports teaches you a lot of self-discipline. It teaches you a lot of patience.
Mm-hmm.
Because you cannot produce results in 6 months or 1 year. It takes a lot of time to build aerobic fitness, right? So that's why. And then, as I said, instant gratification doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's not that today I'm running, I'll get a PB, tomorrow again I'll get PB. You have to make, tons of efforts, then only you get it. Right. And then, a lot of planning, a lot of importance on nutrition, your recovery, your, what kind of food you're going to take. There's so many aspects which come. Support.
Right.
It's not that every day morning you wake up at 5 and your wife will say, no, please go. She'll open the door. That support has to be there.
I wish it's there.
Your smile says it all. I'm sure. So that's how it happens. So there are a lot of things which endurance sport teaches, and these are a few things I've listed. There are many, many more which we don't realize.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand. One last question, and I'm going to open the floor for discussion.
Right.
Now, when you mention about your company name, Boots and Crampons, I know what is Boots. Crampons, I had to actually search what is Crampons. Now, in 2 minutes, can you tell all of us what does your company actually do? I mean, somebody looking at it may think that you're manufacturing boots and crampons, right? So what do you actually do?
Right. So we are into high altitude mountaineering. Okay. Right. So we started in 2017. The company started in 2017, and we were leading expeditions all around the world. Mm-hmm. There's something called 7 summits, which is highest peaks in all the 7 continents.
Right.
So we have done, like, say, Kilimanjaro 8 times. We have done Aconcagua. We have done Elbrus. We have done Everest. So we used to focus on those. Now, because of COVID, people are not ready to travel abroad. So we are focusing on Indian markets, like, climbs in Uttarakhand, Himachal and all.
Right.
Our main aim is that, like me, if I have to leave army, I have to do something which is worthwhile. Otherwise, army gave me everything in life. Once I joined army, I was in 12th. Army taught me how to wear a shorts properly, how to wear a shirt and tie. So if I have to leave something like this, it has to be really substantial.
Right.
Something which is close to my heart. And that's why our aim is to take more and more people to explore, to know what adventure is, and not get stuck in that 9 to 8 or these days 24-hour kind of a job, work from home.
Okay. All right. So maybe we'll spend a little bit more time towards the end. I'm going to open the floor for an interaction. So all of you can actually come. All of you can come on video and ask. I won't say ask questions. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to interact with Romil. We have about 25 minutes in our hands. So whoever wants to interact with him, just switch on your video, switch on your mic, and ask whatever that you want to ask.
Srikanth sir, I'll go first. Is that
okay?
Sure,
please. Yeah, carry on. Yeah.
Thank you. Romil sir, fantastic. You mentioned about emulating somebody. As soon as Srikanth sent us out that you'll be speaking, I looked around, okay, and then I watched all of your videos on YouTube, and I knew that I have to work with you. Okay, I'll be in touch with you in a few months, and I definitely want to be climbing with you. Okay, my important question is that I have this is a personal question, so I have competing priorities. Like, I have an exam, okay, that is coming my way, which will help me to earn more money so that I can drive or achieve my, dreams of, climbing Mount Everest or doing a triathlon. I need some funding. So this exam is very important for me, but that is on the work side. But there is also one of the thing is that I need to go attend the trainings as well, where there are competing priorities. So how do you, or have you come across any situation where you've managed both of them and then you achieved both of your goals?
Excellent question, I must say. See, your task is clearly that you want to climb something and you need money for that. Absolutely fine, because both the things are important. Now, point to note is that you need to strike a balance between both. That you need to spend time in training, and you have to spend time in uh, clearing that exam. Now, you have to see how do you distribute your time. If you feel which could be the case, that the exam is so difficult that you will not be able to spend time in training, then you need to focus on that exam, because training you can do subsequently as well. But then you've got to make sure you don't get into that uh, a circle wherein you keep clearing exams, and you forget that you're losing on time, because we all understand that time is not going to stop.
Yes.
The age is not going to stop. So you've got to make sure you strike a balance, which I'm sure is possible, because a training for any expedition or anything to start with doesn't take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, I know one of my friends, he's based in US. He used to train for 1.5 hours per day, and then he used to come to Nepal after 6 months, climb a mountain, go back. Next time he would come, climb 500 meters higher, go back again after 6 months, come do a 500 meters more. So that way he improved his threshold every time he was climbing there. So that is one possibility. But then each individual case is different. I think 1.5 hours, or even if it is less, is okay, because for exam also you will not be studying 10-12 hours. You can always spend half an hour, 1 hour in training, and then it improves your your focus, your concentration also. If you are in front of, I've realized it, that if I'm always in front of the books, my receptive thing, as regards studying is concerned, also drops my efficiency. So that's why it's important that I maintain strict discipline, that this much time is for training. I'll come back, study, and then do other things as well. So this is what I would do, and this is my answer to this.
Thank you, Romil. Thank you so much again.
Welcome,
I
brother.
have a lot more questions. I'll just wait for others to speak.
Yeah,
as
so
well.
let
Thank
others
you.
ask and we'll
Anytime.
come back to you. Yeah. Ishan,
Hello,
you
sir.
have, yeah, Ishan.
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity, first of all. So I'll just tell about myself. I'm a final year student, not still a young child. So I just want to ask for the future journey. So there has been many ups and downs in life, be it a student or be it a professional life. I'm pretty sure being your diverse culture and diverse, I mean, the trajectory you followed must have some downfalls also. Like how to motivate yourself in that time, like, and say no, I can still do it. Like what is your something like, do you follow this thing, watch some motivational videos, go to your mentor or something, or do you have someone always to support, like I can still do it even after 10 failures, no, 11 time I will pass? Like what is your mantra for that?
See, every individual is different.
Yeah.
If you see my history, till 34 I didn't have anything. There was one time that I was 34 years old, and I didn't know where my life was heading to. I used to see my friends all around, and I found everyone else was successful. And 34 was the time I said, I reached IIT Kharagpur. Before that, I didn't do anything. My friends and all who were there with me in India, they used to tell me, that I was horrible in running. Mountaineering, I did once. That was a field expedition. Academics, I said I was third division. So there was nothing which was working out for me, and that was the time I realized, once I turn 60, once I become, grandfather, I'll not have any stories to tell. That what I've done in my life, that's a typical case. Everyone hits that point sometime in life. Be rest assured, everyone has to hit that point. It's just that how you bounce back from there. You have to cut out the negativity. You have to keep working hard. See, anybody who's successful is not, as you said, it's not a one-way journey. There have been lots and lots of downfalls. It's just that we don't see the downfalls. We just see, that ultimately he has achieved this goal. We don't see the hard work which has gone behind. So that's with you, that's with others as well. So focus on, working hard. Stop bothering about the results. That's more important, I think.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
All the best, Ishank.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Ashwin, I see your video on. Yeah, please.
Yes,
Ashwin.
yes. Thank you, Srikanth, for this opportunity. And Romil, it was amazing to hear your experiences. And I must say, amazing storytelling. I could literally be there on the Everest, seeing you and your troop. So thank you so much. My question is around cross training in life. As you rightly said, running, swimming, I mean, it makes you kind of versatile. And while you were at Everest and you experienced literally that near-death experience, that was like a cross-training. And when you apply those kind of, things to entrepreneurship or business, how does it work? How does mind, become stronger, learning from one side and applying it to other side?
Thank you, Ishank, for the kind words. I'm glad you found that you didn't waste your time listening to me, because that's always the biggest challenge, that people are investing so much of time in you. Regarding cross training, you said for any kind of work which you're doing, I would say there's so many things to learn from whatever you're doing in real life. How you interpret it in your own experience, that's important. Like me and Srikanth were discussing that metaphor regarding that fog. Once you're driving, you don't have to be 100% sure of what the destination is. You know that Agra is there, you have to reach there, but then you've got to make sure that your next step is clear. So I am clear right now that, what is my next step in boots and crampons. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure after 5 years we'll be in, scuba diving, we'll be in, paragliding. I'm not sure. But then I know from here on, for next 6 months, my target is that we need to climb this mountain in Japan. We need to climb this mountain in Nepal. So, one step by step you have to go. If you think yourself, like I'll give you a real life example. I was climbing Everest in 2019. The moment we were trekking to the base camp, I was dead tired. And this was not even base camp, And I was wondering, what the hell have I been thinking? How will I climb there if I'm, huffing and puffing at this side? But then I realized, I don't have to think about that destination. I have to only bother about my next step. And this used to be my mantra, frankly, everybody gives up maximum at camp 1 or camp 2. It's only the mind which keeps pushing you. On my left foot, I used to say, that army thing, pain is temporary. And on the right leg, it used to be that pride is forever.
Nice.
So every time you used to have this, pain is temporary, pride is forever. Because, you're so tired, you have to keep motivating yourself. And frankly, this motivation, whatever I'm doing, is all failure if, you don't understand it. It has to come from inside. There'll be thousands of people giving thousands of lectures, but then at the end of it, it's inside you. That is going to make the difference.
Nice.
Thank you, Romil. That was wonderful.
Welcome, Ashkan.
Nice. Okay. Who else is going to? Let me pull somebody. Yes, Anupama. Okay, it is Anupama. Yes.
Yeah, good evening, Romil sir. Good evening, Srikanth sir.
Good evening.
Sushil here. Sir, my question may be silly, but I have that fear, so I have to ask you. And I think some part of that Romil sir already answered in the last question. Sir, I want to do Everest, and I'm very sure that Romil sir will make that happen. But sir, the biggest fear what I have is, what if I fail in between? See, there are two fears. Number one thing, what if I fail in between from my part? And what if I fail between in my team's part? Because I don't want to be a spoil sport for my team also, sir. Means I don't want to be a demotivative angle for them. So I have a big fear. If I attempt and if I don't do, then what, sir? I hope, Romil sir, you understand what I mean to say, because I have that big fear and I have shared that with you.
So for all the viewers, Sushil sir and his wife, both of them are climbing with us for the Everest Base Camp this year, and we are, very proud of them because the way they are training, amazing. So,
Nice.
coming on to this question, very, very interesting question again. Sushil sir, if you fail en route, camp 2, camp 3, what will happen? You tried, na? If
Yeah.
you're not trying, what will happen? You'll not even go to camp 2. You'll be in Bombay. So it's just that if you have to fail, you have to fail climbing Everest. You don't have to fail in Mumbai, in your car, in your home, in your office, thinking that agar main fail hua to main jaunga hi nahi. That fear should not stop you from trying. That's more important. Second part is your team, because of you, your team member suffers. Now let me put that other way. You and me are in a team. If I fail, will you feel bad कि आपका summit नहीं हुआ? You will feel like you'll take me along. So it's not that what if you're failing today, it could be me. So we as a team have to support each other. That's where the teamwork comes into play. So that's why
I appreciate that, sir. See, as you said, if you and me are a team, and if I fail, you will support me, and if you fail, I support you. But sir, everybody don't have that mindset. Or maybe, to be very honest, maybe even I think, yeah, Romil sir ne yaar idhar aake himmat haar di. Now I would have done that agar Romil sir ka support hota. This I'm just saying, sir. I'm not of that mindset, but I'm just saying in general, sir, because I don't want to be spoilsport for any of my team members, sir. Maybe the member is good or maybe the member is not good, but I don't want to be spoilsport. That is also a big hota hai, sir. It means it happens.
Sir, I agree 100%. Nobody wants to fail, and you realize that, that the person who is not able to climb with you is not that he's not trying. He's given his 100%, and then then only he's giving up. So you have a lot of people, you have Sherpas, you have a lot of support who are there to make sure that, the team is not getting affected. So we make sure these kind of measures are in place, and, as a team, we succeed. That's why the team comes into play. It's not a individual sport.
Right.
Chalo, sir. Appreciate your answer. Thank you very much for bringing me out of that fear, sir. All I can say is I'll do my best in EBC, and I assure you that I will support each and every member of EBC during this trip, sir.
I know, sir. I know that for sure.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I see Anshul coming on the video. Anshul, you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Amar, I'll come back to you after Anshul, okay? And then I'll come to Gaurav. Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity. Good evening, Romil sir. I am Anshul. I'm a FPM scholar at IIM Lucknow. Unfortunately, I could never interact with you while you were there, but I learned a lot about you from my batchmate Guninder, also known as GPS.
Yeah.
I have two small questions. If you find them irrelevant, you might choose not to answer. I can reach you through other means later. First of all, I love my job, whatever the work I do, and I take trekking as a sort of refreshment once in a 6 month or a year. And 3-4 treks I have done in the past, easy to moderate. Unfortunately, I've seen many people getting injured very badly. I've seen people breaking their bones in the wilderness, and I generally prefer to travel solo. So the one fear I have in attempting the bigger peaks is that what if I get injured in the wilderness? What if I break my bone? How will I come back? And the second question is the other one. I'm currently 27-year-old and I'm also an Indian Territorial Army aspirant. So do you have any tips for me?
Okay, first of all, being a solo traveler, you need to understand there are inherent risks involved. That's what adventure is. If it is not risk prone, then it's not an adventure. Then it's a very planned trip. You go to Goa, see on the beach side. So you need to, I'm sure you understand, you've been on treks that people get injured, but then in spite of that, people are going there. It's because they are ready for such adventure. Had that not been the case, nobody would go on Everest. Right? Why do you need to go to Everest? Like my mom used to say, why do you need to go to Everest at 43? There's so many 23, 27-year-old go there. They let them go. But then that's what adventure has it, that people would die, but then still there'll be people who want to go and do summits, keep pushing their boundaries and keep trying something new. So you have to see, if you can take risk, then you go. Otherwise, you go with a team. You have 3-4 people, so that in case something goes wrong with one person, the team is there to support. Right? So you have to strike a balance what exactly you want. Right?
Okay.
Regarding the territorial army, if you are keen, I can get you connected. I have a few friends. I can share the numbers. I'm sure GPS would share my number with you. You can get in touch with me. I will put you across to them. No worries.
Sure. I'll do that. Thank you.
Nice connecting, Anshul.
Same here.
Yeah, Amar, you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, sir. So thanks again for this talk, sir. So my question is sort of two. One is, so you talked about having clarity on the next step. So there is also this mode where you are exploring what your next step should be. And sometimes you sort of don't find, it probably takes a little bit of time to get what your passion is, what you want to pursue next. And again, as you were saying, different people have different mindsets. It takes different time for people to achieve different things. One is sort of what's your thoughts on someone who has spent a little too much time exploring, and this sort of this also looks exciting, this also looks exciting. There's a little bit of confusion. So that's one. Second thing is, you told that people have aspirations towards doing something, and some people just don't. You said you were just groomed to give you 100%. Any tips for people who are sort of, because of a mental block, because of something, they're sort of stuck in that phase where they know they want to do something, they know that they'll enjoy doing something, but they're not able to get out of the rut? Any thoughts, any suggestions on that?
Amar, may I know how old are you, if you don't mind?
I am going to turn 34 next month.
Great. At 34, you are not clear of what you want to do in life. I've seen people in 60s, 70s, they're not clear, what they want to do the next step. So it's very normal. It's very, very normal, I tell you. People on their deathbed would not know what they have done in their life, and they'll have a lot of excuses that, I could have done this, I could have done that, but I didn't do. What I am saying is my version. I'm sure it is wrong, but then I'll share it. What is my version? So my version is that, yeah, I'll share it. Today I'd gone to a friend. He's got a new Thar, that vehicle which is there. And yesterday also I went for a meeting wherein people had, big vehicles and such stuff. I don't have a car, because I don't find any fancy in any car. There are people who, there was someone who showing me he's got a 2 crore Merc or whatever. I don't find that interesting. Everybody is different, At the end of the life, I always feel that, I'm not going to carry any cash with me. When I go outside, I stay in Oyo. I am okay paying 500. My friends, my co-mates, they stay in 5 stars. It's okay. It's priorities. It's not that you want to stay in 5-star and you want to do things which, which will not make you earn that much amount of money. So it's all about prioritizing your thing. I never travel in anything else except metro. Even if my father has a car, I'll not prefer going in a car. I'll go in a shared Uber or whatever. I'll travel in a metro because I don't have to prove it to anyone. Right. In a group of friends, I'm okay to tell them that, I've come in a metro. When they say they got stuck in traffic jam, because of their big vehicle endeavor or whatever, that doesn't interest me. So it's just about, finding your priorities. And let me tell you one thing, whatever confusion may be inside a person, somewhere I think your heart knows what is right. It's just that you don't want to listen to it. I feel that way, I had a lot of things, my parents telling me that, you've done IIT, you've done IIM, you'll get good fat paycheck, whatever. I said, fine, but then that doesn't interest me. I'm okay with, wearing same shirt every day, whatever. But then that's me. Some people have different opinions, their choices.
Right. And for the second part, sir, which is if as you said, sometimes people just are sort of in a rut. They know that they want to aspire, or they aspire to do something, but for some reason, some mental block, they're just not investing their energy in the right things. Any suggestions, any thoughts on how to sort of break that mental rut and come out of it?
What is the mental block? It's money. You know, you have EMIs to pay, you have a 4-bedroom house, you have so many things. That's why, you know, that is one thing which is holding you back. That's most of the times the case, you know, that my friend, he has bought a 2 crore house, so he's booked for next 10 years or 15 years paying the EMIs. Same 2-bedroom house here. You have, who's stopping you? It's only that you have to convince your family that, you know, this is what we want. This is what is good for us, rather than, you know, 9 to 9 job and earning money, drinking. And that's what I said, you know, your heart knows what exactly you want.
It comes down to priorities and really listening to what your heart wants. Thank you so
I think
much.
so. Most
Yeah,
welcome.
Thank you so
yeah,
much.
Gaurav, you can come on and ask the question. Yeah, Gaurav.
Yeah. Hi, Shrikant.
Hi.
First of all, thank you for this wonderful session. And my question to you, Romil sir, is that whenever you tell your family that you are going for an expedition or climbing a mountain or anything of such sort, so how do they react, or how do you convince them, you know, as to that this is not as risky as they might feel, or you know, I mean, how do they take this thing in their head? They might be fearful of you coming back or not, or how do they react basically, or how do you convince them?
Yeah, Gaurav, I can see you finding it difficult to convince your family, but then yeah, it's not easy for sure. I'll tell you what, you know, once I was preparing for Everest, my family knew that, you know, if I've taken a step, I'll make sure I am the best that day I can be. You know, training wise, I'll not leave any stone unturned. So I'll give my best. So that is one thing which gives them confidence that, you know, this guy, if he's going on a trek, he's done his homework well, which comes, you know, with experience, with the kind of exposure army has given me, that, you know, preparation, planning, contingencies, how do you handle? Those things is one.
Okay.
And if you keep doing same things again and again, your family also gives up. Kuch nahi ho sakta type, you know. So that is another stage. And
All
once
right.
they see you happy, you know, they also feel happy. You know, that's what family is all about. You see them happy, you also feel happy. Otherwise, if they see you, you know, crying, cribbing, then obviously the whole atmosphere in the family also is not as vibrant as it should be.
True, true. Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank you.
there is a question from the chat box from Priyanka Srivastava, who is actually babysitting a young baby right now. She wants to know insights on self-discipline.
Nice. That's an interesting one. Can get long, but then yeah, I'll tell you in brief. There are two things in life, you know. One is self-discipline is, you know what is right, and there's something which you're doing. For example, and something, you know, which you want to do. I want to be on Instagram and WhatsApp all through the day, 24 hours. But then I know it's not right. Still, if I am on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp whole day, then I lack self-discipline. So that's why I put it that self-discipline is knowing what is right for you and doing it. Not that what you're doing or what you want to do. What you want to do can be wrong, as I said. So self-discipline is listening to what is right for you and following it.
All right.
For army, it becomes, you know, it comes easy because you've groomed that way right from, as I said, 12, that, you know, discipline is thrown into you, but then not easy, but then always can be done.
Okay, one more question in the chat box. How to develop winning mindset in others?
Winning mindset in others means I couldn't understand.
Okay, so we spoke about mindset for yourself. How do you develop it for yourself, right? How do you help other people to develop a winning mindset? I think that's the question.
Okay, that's a nice one. Winning mindset in others, you can just guide them. But then, as I said earlier to one of the viewers, it has to come from inside, you know. I can go on and on for 10 years, 10 hours, but then if it is not coming from inside, it doesn't work. So one thing is you be a personal example to the other person, because whatever I'm saying to you, you'll only listen once you know I'm following it. You know, if I'm not following it, I can just keep giving you gyan, you will not also listen to me. So it's important you be a role model to your family, to your children, and then subsequently they'll also get used to it. Like my family sees me getting up early in the morning, going for a jog. They also want to play early in the morning and do such things. So this is one thing they emulate, and then at the end of the day, it has to come from inside. No books, nothing can teach you.
Thank you, Romil, for that wonderful interaction that we had with you. We are on top of the time. Anyway, by the way, in the chat box, I have put 2 PDF files, brochures on a couple of programs that Romil is running. What I will do is I will also share this particular video recording with you. I'll put it in my Google Drive, give the link, and also share the PDFs in case you want to get in touch with Romil. I will also share his email ID is already there in the brochures. Please get in touch with him directly. Thank you, Romil, once again. I had a blast of a time with you, asking the questions that I've been wanting to ask you for a long time. And I'm so happy that you accepted the invite and agreed to be a speaker for this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shrikant. It's always a pleasure, chatting with you. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Thank you. Right. Thank you.
Romil sir, can I get like 10 seconds? I just want to thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Romil sir, thank you. It just reaffirms, I'm a little too old right now, but I'm trying to achieve a lot of these plans that I have, and I'm on the right path. And your talk sessions just reconfirm that things that I'm doing, things that I'm failing is also helping me. So I'm course correcting throughout my way. So I'll definitely work with you. I'm already working with Shrikant sir. He helped me to clear 13 loans because he said one word last year. In the month of April, I started to close one by one loan. And by December 28th, I closed all the 13 loans. I'm debt free. And I'm looking forward to, I'm trying to achieve what I did not achieve in last 25 years. So I really want to thank you for that, because I looked at all your videos and I just knew that I'll be working with you. And then the steps that I'm making is also correct as well. So thank you again.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you so much, guys.
Right. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Jai Hind.